Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Twigi iRacing series here on the Blitz Racing Network, as it's race number 2 of round number 6 of the playoffs to figure out who will be moving on to race for a championship. We still have one more race to go after this one, but what a season we've had so far. As we take a look here at what the points have been looking like coming into this week, you've got a lot of different drivers that have been showing up, but are six that are left in the playoffs. Finding that Americ Watchhorn topping the board for himself, and excited to see how the 91 is going to continue on with that pace, as well as that of Jacob Elkins, Elliott Drummond, Brandon Gregg, Patrick Hernandez, and Doug Tuttle going to be those six drivers racing it out. And you see the cut line. You've got drivers, Brandon Gregg, just within our top six. Sure, certainly should be a fun one to watch as qualifying is coming to a conclusion. I bring in my with me, as my name is Sam Dyer. I've got Matt Dyer with me, and Matt, certainly in these playoffs have brought us a little bit of flair. I've seen a lot of non-playoff drivers find themselves into victory lane, but always on the sidelines, it's Merrick Watchhorn who will have the pole this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been really impressed with Jacob Elkins. He's shown that he's almost kind of like by Hernandez, where he's been consistent and he's gotten better throughout the year. So I think he'll make a huge statement here as well.
He certainly is going to try his best as qualifying has come to a conclusion. Let's take a look here at our qualifying results here this evening, as we're going to be seeing these drivers racing it out. Taking the pole award is going to be that of Merrick Watchhorn. Second is going to be Elliott Drummond. And then we've got some newcomers that are going to be racing here this evening, with that of Brady Wilderman, as well as going to be that of Alec Delphin, and going to be as well seen in our final row in our top six, going to be that of Brendan Gregg and that of Maurice Gilmillion. Then the rest of the field going to be starting back in row number 4, going to be finding that of Maurice Gilmillion, that of Jacob Elkins, as well as Patrick Hernandez, Doug Tuttle, as well as John Bowalda Jr. going to be finishing out that 5th row. And then it's going to be that of Michael Robinson and Riley Marabello, our winner from last week, going to be starting at the tail end of the field in the 53. Of note, did not put a qualifying time in, so we'll see how the 52 is able to make their charge going forward after last week's win. As drivers are getting taken off, Matt, we're here at Richmond short track racing for 125 laps. What are you expecting to see here this evening?
I'm really expecting a fight for the bottom at the start. The bottom on fresh tires is going to be huge, but I think as the tires start to wear, I think you're going to find people starting to go up into that second lane. It's that's where you can really defend your position. Allow you really pinch that person off and really just keep that momentum. Also, with people, stay. If you could keep your car on the bottom, you're going to save your tires a lot better than on the top.
And also able to just keep that momentum and speed so much better. As we're at a short track, we're going to take 2 waiver rounds as we're coming to the 1 to go indicator. You can see on our bottom right, got ourselves a track map for you all out there to be able to watch and see where drivers are on track, when the leaders are coming up on lap traffic as well. Get to see when drivers are having issues. Matt, this new track map, exciting to see. It's going to help us, help the viewers, to tell when there's an incident going on or when drama's about to be spilling over.
Yeah, like it even shows you like how far people are, and like who goes into pit road, who's in pit road, who's coming off of pit road, or even the gap between people who have already pitted and who are coming back.
So much great information for us to have as drivers are getting ready to ramp up here this evening at Richmond. Again, this is the second race of the round of 6. One more to go before we get our final 4 solidified, but let's get ourselves back to green flag racing for the Twigi iRacing series, as Elliott Drummond, Merrick Watchhorn, the rivalry continues down into turn number 1. As coming out of turn number 2, everyone's looking good, trying to get single filed up, but our leaders continue to stay side by side. Here comes the newcomer, the 51 of Brady Wilderman, and Wilderman's going to be trying his best, but it's Merrick Watchhorn sliding in line, going to be leading lap number 1 here of our 125 laps. And Matt, tonight, the drivers, it feels like every race they change up what the difference is off-track issues going to go for that. Michael Robinson, who's going to be off course immediately for themselves, as Robinson continues to race on. No yellow is going to be thrown because he was off track and on the apron and on to the grass. But Matt, a quick issue for a driver that we kind of were expecting to be really more of a learning experience for that of Michael Robinson.
Yeah, that was definitely a learning experience. Like one thing that I did see while people were in practice is you had to be very careful on that throttle on the exit because it was very easy to snap out. And I saw a lot of people snapping loose on corner exits. So that would be one thing to look at, especially on fresh tires.
How well can these drivers handle with their throttle control as well as the exit of these corners? Both the exit of turn 2 and the exit of turn 4, very different on how you're going to have to attack these corners. You can see on our mini map, exit of turn 4, much wider of a corner, but that exit 2, Matt, so dangerous on how that wall just sneaks up on you.
Absolutely. It tempts you to get back on the throttle, but that if you snap just a little bit on the exit, that wall catches up to you. And you think you can drift out a lot quicker, but that wall just keeps coming even more quicker.
You can see visually on how the fact that that exit of turn 4, much more of a gradual exit, while it's a lot more of a quick snap that you go straight as you see our leader slowly catching up to lap traffic of Michael Robinson. But up front, Merrick Watchorn, the driver that has kind of been the shining beacon of the season, comes into tonight with 11 wins, 19 top fives, 22 top tens. You could say Maddie's been bullying this league with how well he's been running all season long, but the playoffs haven't been too kind to this machine who's still searching to get more wins here in the playoffs, as he only has one, excuse me, so far in the playoffs, and that was when he started out the round 8. And as well, I should take that he finished out winning the first round of at Dover for the first race for round number 10. So he's has 2 playoff wins, but still surprising. We expect him to have a lot more, especially with the dominant speed the 91's been showing.
Yeah, I think it has been more of the tracks here in the playoffs. I think they haven't quite as favored him, but I think the new additions, like the new people that have come in, lately have put some pressure on him toward maybe I wouldn't say he's feeling the pressure, but he definitely has a lot more fiercer competition lately.
I would say that for sure. I could completely agree on that point, as we've seen a lot of new drivers coming into the fray, but also starting to see some drivers struggling just a little bit, as John Bawaldo's going to be falling backwards. But we talked about drivers in that of the danger zone at the cutoff line. Brandon Gregg in the 2 machine. He's trying to have a good running here this evening, trying to make sure he keeps himself in front of Patrick Hernandez, which Hernandez given a second berth in the playoffs. He actually was knocked out after round number 8, was not able to make his way into round 6, but John Lynch had to back out after personal issues from the playoffs, giving the 19 a spot in. But right now, currently 5th in points. He needs to get some more points and get ahead of this 2 machine, as really it seems like that 4th and final position is the one that's in question on who's going to grab it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there is a lot with how tight the playoffs are. You have to be almost squeaky clean to really make sure you get on the next round. Because if you have an issue in any of these, because you do not want to leave it to Dega to try to squeak your way in there. You want to get as many points as you can here, because the unknown, especially if someone is behind you in the points who could potentially get a win at Dega, is just going to be huge.
I mean, that is always going to be the big question mark when you have a wild card race like Talladega, on how it can affect everything, as these drivers. It's going to be a much shorter race next week for that at Talladega before we have to have the ability to crown a champion in 2 weeks. And really, a lot of these drivers are excited to see how that season finale is going to wind up. Will it be Merrick Watchorn finally making himself the golden boy to win the championship, or could it be someone else trying to steal away a win, or could it be someone accidentally take out the 91, as we've seen that a couple of times here during the playoffs, of people wrestling and ruffling the feathers of this 91 machine. And Ryan Marabello in the 52 was one of those drivers, decided not to qualify, up 4 spots. Biggest mover of the day so far is this 52 on screen.
Yeah, he's been very patient, just kind of waiting for someone to maybe make a little bit of a mistake, and then kind of just scoots on by. He's taking very good care of his tires. He's running very comparable laps to the top 3. So I fully expect him by the end of this thing to be up towards the front in the top 5.
I think also it's going to matter on, do we get a yellow? That's going to be a big question mark for these drivers. Because we've seen a lot of these races this season have ability of staying green for quite a long time before we have to see drivers hit pit road for the first time, which Matt, that's something these drivers are going to have to talk about is when do they hit pit road, as that has been a changing factor on the fuel limit.
Hmm.
As the last couple of weeks, it's been changing up and down. Well, the drivers were given 42% on their fuel limit, so the drivers got to be careful on when they have to come to pit road.
Yeah, absolutely. With the 42%, you're looking at around your full tank about 43 to 46 laps around there. But it's really, I think, I don't think fuel is going to be an issue. I think tire wear is potentially going to be a thing. Um, because with the short track tires are going to be such a big deal, and the fall off versus new tires is really big here.
Already talking about fall off drivers feeling about a half a second to about that of 6/10 off of their speed as Maurice Gomillion going to be passed by Patrick Hernandez and Riley Marabello, and 52 kind of allowing this 19 to be the spearhead to cut his way through this field, just following in the tire tracks as they slowly march forward. So Brendan Gregg's going to be the next driver in line. This is the closest battle on track. You can see on our on our track guide on the bottom right how much we're starting to see drivers split away from one another. We already have one driver a lap down after that of Michael Robinson's spin back on lap number 3, but it's already starting to see that divide amount of the driver's pace splitting everybody up.
And I think with with the limited fuel too, it allows people to maybe push a little bit harder. Because obviously your fuel is kind of a factor, but it's not. But like, one thing I'm really liking watching Riley here is he's very smooth so far. He's been smooth in, smooth off, just kind of just following the people in front of him, not really tearing up his stuff too much. So it's going to be interesting, and just to watch Hernandez slowly get closer to Greg, and we all know how close those points are between them. Just one swap between those, and that puts Hernandez in the top 4.
Patrick Hernandez trying to utilize all of this, given the second chance in the playoffs. Most drivers are never given this in a career on iRacing in any league standpoint. And when you get at this opportunity, you usually try not to squander it. And Patrick Hernandez seeing his opportunity in front of him. And as well, I mean, we talked about Jacob Elkins being one of those drivers to watch out for. Elkins, he's not out of the woodworks just yet. He's all the way back in ninth place. He's got Doug Tuttle right behind him. And this now gives an opportunity for that of Brandon Gregg to try to steal a couple of points and maybe even find himself jumping over that of the 9 machine.
Yeah, it's really going to be tricky. I kind of really expected maybe Elkins to be a bit further up, but obviously it's still early. We're only just over halfway through this run, so it's really going to come down to who takes advantage of the pit stops, and who can over and or over and under.
And really going to have to stay patient the best that they can. And a lot of drivers trying to take their spots. As speaking of spots, out of Brandon Gregg, Patrick Hernandez having a little bit of a scare trying to get by lap traffic as they'll fall back to Riley Marabello, who is able to take a little bit of a 2-for-1 after using the lap car as a pick. As Patrick Hernandez, Brandon Gregg, they continue to race it on for that 6th position now.
Yeah, unfortunately, we missed it on the screen, but like Riley ended up getting past both of them, and starting to charge up towards Alex.
Which that seeing Patrick Hernandez on screen trying to get Dig a little bit lower any more that he can, and he's got to be careful not to touch that apron as you're right on board with the 19. Patrick Hernandez going to try his best as they're getting by the best that they're doing of the 44 machine of Michael Robinson. It looks like still side by side with the 19 and that of the 44 as the two of Greg. Just Matt looking at the 2 machine. Looks like he's used.
Oh, got
Oh
the
boy.
apron.
That apron's so dangerous, and once again able to get by the lap car, but that was the same exact little bit of deja vu that happened just that of 3 laps ago to Brandon Gregg, while Pat Hernandez was right behind the 2, and in front of them, issues going to be happening for that of the 1 of Alex Delph, who's starting to feel a little bit of that tire wear, Matt. The exit of these corners starting to be more and more of a troublesome spot now.
Yeah, especially when it starts to get tight. That wall comes even quicker. So it's really just going to be, how aggressive do you want to be entering versus exit? Because if you can take care of your entrance, you'll maybe back up that entrance. It will save that right front, and where you can be able to use it better on the long run by trail braking. But if you really are trying to attack these corners, it's gonna be a long day.
As drivers up front, all going to be about a second apart, if not more, from one another. Drivers that are racing close. Driver that we were questioning about, Jacob Elkins, back in 8th place for the 9 machine. Starting to try to make his way forward as he's closed up on Mauricio Million for that 44 and the 9 are battling currently.
Yeah, like this is starting to turn into a very interesting race with how far spread out people are. Obviously, there's a few that are pretty close to one another. It's going to be interesting who is going to, because obviously we're getting pretty close to pit stops within the next 10 to 12 laps. Who, as we see,
Caution flag.
Riley.
It's Riley. Wow. Did not expect the 52 to spin, and this is right around those questionable spots, Matt, where when did we think these drivers are going to come into pit road? And now this puts them in a spot where they're most likely going to have to come into pit road.
Absolutely. I think everyone is going to be coming in this time.
And this caution now is also going to be allowing everyone to close back in as we get ready to see a replay of what brought out this yellow. Looks to be potentially a solo spin as Matt, really, this 52, this has kind of been a trend of if he starts further back in the field, gets a little greedy at times when he's trying to catch up to our front runners.
Yeah, it looks like it just got just a little bit loose off the corner, and he was trying to work it, and then that wall just reached out and grabbed him, and he just lost all control. And he tried to power through it, but it just kept sliding.
But luckily for that of Riley Marbello, our winner from last week, he does have a fast repair. Same for the rest of the field if they decide to use it now. As the field now going to be all able to come into pit road. Michael Robinson will get the lucky dog. He'll be back on the lead lap, putting all 12 drivers back into position to race with one another as drivers hit pit road. It's 4 tires and fuel for the majority of them. And looking at it, Riley Marbello will use a fast repair as he's got to see another look at what got the 52 out of shape.
I do think it's a little bit still a little bit too early to maybe, or I really should say is a little bit too late to try to do 2 tires here. I think most of everyone is going to take full fuel, 4 tires, and just go from there.
And also looks to be a little bit of decision time making as Merrick Watchorn deciding the outside is where he wants to be on this restart, man. That's always the fun thing of being a leader. You've got the decision on where you want to be starting as it's leader's choice, be on the inside or outside lane on these restarts. Outside, I think that's pretty good positioning. Put yourself for the 91, especially on the patterns that we've seen on Merrick Watchorn having fantastic restarts.
Yeah, but then it also you know potentially puts you in a spot where that guy, if he also gets a good run, maybe tries to dive in turn one a little bit too much and ends up sliding up into you. So it is kind of like a give and take here.
And that guy that's going to be on the inside is Elliot Drummond, who's been second fiddle a handful of times this season. He's been very good on the restarts when he's next to Merrick. Question is now, how well can he get a restart? And if he could stay side by side, can he get that lead position with a good exit out of turn 2? That's all on the line on if he can get a good start here. As drivers lined up, ready to go. Lights are still on as we wait for the one to go indicator. All 12 drivers are back on the lead lap. No one deciding to take just 2 tires. Everyone takes 4 tires in fuel. And 2 drivers will be taking their fast repairs, being Riley Marbello, who brought out our first yellow of the day, and a Michael Robinson as well, going to be using a fast repair. So We'll see how those two with no safety net, how they can handle the rest of this race. 89 more laps to go. And this puts us in a questionable spot, Matt, of could drivers turn this race into a one-stop if we stay green to the end of this race? It's going to be a big question mark if they can do so, but not able to even make it 40 laps. So who knows if we even can make it to a full rest of the race under green flag conditions. As the truck back to pull off, it's going to leave us with Merrick Watchorn, Elliott Drummond, Brendan Gregg, Alec Bedeffin as the drivers are ready to get rolling. We're back to green flag racing here at Richmond, and Drummond, an absolute dismal start for himself.
Yeah, I spun the tires on the inside when he was trying to get going, but it, you know, a really good run from the 48 there.
That is going to be Alec Deffinson, who's going to be trying to make that outside line work. He's ripping it. He's using up those tires and saying, let's get rolling, as he is gone. And just like that, Elliott Drummond says, hold on, let me reel this back in, and he'll be in the preferred lane, but just not able to get the exit that he wants out of turn 2.
Yeah, that is the advantage of being on the outside, is if you can pinch someone, far enough down, they're going to not get a very good, release out of the corners. But the benefit to being on the inside, coming out of 4, is that front straight is not very straight. So it's a bit shorter line to be on the bottom to get down in turn 1, which if you can use your advantage.
Advantage grabbed, advantage used, and as well, talk about drivers using an advantage. Well, there's a little bit of a mix-up in the back half of the field when they went on that last restart, and Riley Marabello is already up to 6th place for the driver that brought out the last yellow, so it's working out great for that machine, as he's now going to be putting Patrick Hernandez and Brendan Gregg back in his sights once more. But a driver we do have to watch out to see how well they can start moving forward. He's got to be the 51 of Brady Wildeman, who did not have the best run for the 51 machine, as he was battling up in our top 4 for the longest time, but he's mired back in 9th. But Riley Marabello, he's one of those drivers also to watch out for, is a little bit of a squirreliness happening behind the 52.
Yeah, I think it's still that point where it's still a little bit too early to really trying to be a little bit more aggressive on the throttle. I think as the temperature in the track starts to go down, and as it starts to get further into the night, I think when it gets complete darkness and the lights are fully on, super cool. I think people are going to be more aggressive on the throttle.
And also, Matt, I would say that the temperature in the tires could be another factor to watch out for.
Mm-hmm.
As we are inching ourselves closer and closer to halfway, the drivers ramping it up after this restart as Maurice Gilmillion under fire, as Brady Wildeman going to be trying to make the outside lane work for the 51. A little bit of a crossover move, trying to get up late apex, an early apex, which allows him to make this move, diving it to the inside. Wildeman getting by the 44, Maurice Gilmillion. Gilmillion really starting to struggle at this point as Jacob Elkins makes the pass as well. And now the 44 trying to retaliate, but just overcooks those tires. It did not work out on that entry to turn 3.
Obviously with Merrick and Elliott, out front, it's been very interesting to see how the other playoff drivers have been trying to work through this other traffic and these people who are not in the playoffs, because it kind of puts them in a really tough spot where the non-playoffs drivers know that they're not know that the playoff drivers do not want to take that little extra risk. So maybe the non-playoff people are trying to maybe put those playoff drivers in a tough spot to make their passing a little bit easier.
Also, you got to think that we've got that of the 1 machine of Alec Duffins, as well as the 51 of Waldeman, going to be both racing their newcomers, trying to show out that they deserve to be racing in this series and trying to show, hey, that they're going to be threats to run for. I'd imagine they're not really in too much of a give or take, and I'm curious if they've recognized on which drivers they're running around. Is see here on screen the 2 of Brendan Gregg, who hasn't really moved that much. He's fallen down to 6th place. He's been up to 3rd, currently running in that a 4th place, but he's touched every position so far that you would want to be in, which is in our top 10 so far.
Yeah, and obviously they have added some banners to their cars. So if you see you're just like on Greg's car, if you see the green splitter, the green banner across the top of the car, and the green spoiler, those are the people that are still in the playoffs, still fighting for a championship.
There's 6 of them out on track, being Merrick Watchorn leading this race. Second, Elliott Drummond. Brandon Gregg in fourth. Patrick Hernandez in fifth. Jacob Elkins back in seventh. And as well, that of Doug Total all the way back in 10th place, which Doug has been struggling. As you also see the battling in the past being made for fifth, as that's Riley Marabello now getting by Patrick Hernandez.
Yeah, each position that Hernandez is behind Greg, it kind of gives Greg a little bit of a points bumper. But ooh, like Hernandez got really deep in that corner and almost took out Riley.
Riley cannot afford that. Riley, a non-playoff driver, but going out there just for the wins and the trophy hunting in the playoffs. Hernandez, again, trying his best. Been Mr. Consistent. Besides that of, Merrick Watchorn, driver that leads all other stats. If you strip away all of Merrick's stats, is Patrick gets himself squirrely out of turn 2 once again for the 19, but he comes into this season 0 wins, 15 top 5s, 22 top 10s. The consistency has been there. That's how he got into the playoffs, and because he showed up to more races for most of the season, Patrick Hernandez was our points leader until Merrick Watchorn just got so many wins, he took over that crown. But this 19 is certainly the fact that he has shown up. His attendance has been high. That's why he's been a driver to watch out for coming into the playoffs.
Yeah, like as we're getting so we are about halfway through the run, and we're still seeing people like still kind of get a little bit snappy loose off the corner. So it making you wonder, maybe it's not going to get tighter. Maybe it's only in the center entry and center of the corner that it gets tight, and maybe people are trying to turn the wheels a little bit too much to where it's just snapping the car loose on exit.
And a lot of searching on top of that, of searching for where the grip could be on entries. And that's where we've seen drivers ducking it and tapping that apron.
Ooh.
As Hernandez, he looks like it's a snowball. It just continues to grow and grow on the issues. And Matt, I wouldn't be surprised if this 19 machine might be the cause of our next yellow.
I mean, he has shown great car control all year, so I think he'll be able to hold on to it. But it's one of those things where like once you get that right rear warm, it's just going to continue to get a little bit more snappy or loose, and the more you keep snapping loose, the more heat you're going to build up in that tire, where it's just going to keep potentially like getting worse.
Gonna have to take it slow for a couple of laps if you're Hernandez. Try to cool off the tires the best you can, but it's going to be difficult to do so as Brandon Gregg now going to be under pressure. Riley Marabello on the charge forward. Give him 4th place now after passing the number 2 machine of Brandon Gregg, as 52 trying to go for back-to-back wins after last week's win at Texas. Trying to get a win here tonight. And looking at the drivers and their fastest laps that have been placed all night long, it's Merrick Watchorn who's leading this race with the fastest lap of a 21.95. But the last lap for these drivers, about that of 7/10 slower than their fastest time. So starting to see that wear kick in once again here, Matt, and we are just about 10 laps away from when we saw that of the 52 have his issues at the same range of tire stint that we saw on that first long green flag run.
Yeah, but I think now that people know like how their tires are going to be, and you're kind of sitting in a spot now where you're kind of just sitting in a spot waiting for people to start making the move, because I think as soon as one person makes the move down to pit road, everyone else is going to start filing in behind them. So it's really just waiting, because you do not want to be the first person to pit road. You kind of want to be maybe in like the middle, but you also don't want to give up too much track time. You kind of want to wait for someone else to make that move first.
Waiting game, going to continue on. And also, Matt, I'm curious on how drivers are going to try again. The window was going to be pretty close on if they could split when that last restart was. try to turn this race into a one stop if it's going to be possible, or if drivers are just going to commit to a two stop. Most likely, we've seen the last couple of weeks, these races have turned into a fuel run type of a stint. Curious on who's going to be the driver to try something gutsy and try to stretch their fuel out as long as possible. As you are watching the Blitz Racing Network this evening on a Friday night for the Twigi iRacing series, my name is Sam Dyer. With me is Matt Dyer. And this season still coming to a close very quickly as a little bit of blinking issues hitting that of the 52 machine of Riley Marabello. And drivers trying to see who's got the closest battle on track, and it looks to be the battling between the 2 and the 19. As we were talking about Patrick Hernandez struggling with the rear end, well, it seems like he's found a little bit of a solution now, Matt, as he has been slowly closing in on the gap on this 2.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch. 'Cause I think really it's been about how can you really maintain, and it seems like Hernandez is maybe backing up the entry a little bit, which is helping him on the exit. So it's definitely nice to see someone trying to adjust and really just take advantage of how you can attack the corners.
Adaptability. Who's got it? That's always something that changes in every race, at every scenario, as we are past halfway. 59 laps to go for these drivers this evening. As for the Twigi iRacing series, they've got themselves just that of 2 more races to go in the season. After tonight, we've got Talladega next week for 57 laps. Then for 82 laps at Old Atlanta, the old 2008 rough, slick, and hard to handle Atlanta for the championship race. Matt, these are going to be some fun last 2 races to be seen. As Talladega, the wild card race, if you never know who's going to win and find themselves in victory lane. And then hot Atlanta, the classic track that a lot of drivers kind of miss now with the new Super Speedway Atlanta being built. This old classic machine always brought out some classic races.
Yeah, it's one of those tracks where you really have to take advantage of where if you could start towards the front, it's going to be very hard to pass if you can keep it up top. The top lane really comes in as the line as the tires start to wear. But at the beginning of a run, you really want to be on the bottom. So it's going to be interesting to see how people use the many different lines in that track, because there are a lot. You could easily go four wide, and it's going to be interesting to see how everyone attacks that track with the different lanes.
That is the old classic Atlanta. That will be the championship race. We'll figure out our 4 drivers after next week. We'll race for a championship. And these 2 right now, that of Brendan Gregg and Patrick Hernandez, really the 2 drivers to see who's going to take that final spot. As here comes Hernandez to the inside, trying to make the move back into the throttle. Almost a little bit of a tail slapper there at the exit of turn 2. Set up perfectly with a dive bomb, and the 19 trying to make this pass again. So important to grab these points before heading into Talladega, where you don't want to be the driver trying to gain a point. You want to be the driver defending if possible. And Hernandez with the pass, a very clean move by the 19.
Yeah, but it allows Gray to almost throw it up there on the inside, but he thought better of it and just sat back and waited.
Sat back, waited, and with the battling that happened there, it's also going to be allowing a driver behind them. That of Brady Waldeman going to be trying his best to try to close in on these 2. As Greg gets close to the outside wall, had to back out, and he'll fall back as one driver hitting pit road. That's John Bawalda Jr. kind of giving the indication for the 5. He will not be able to make it from here on out. He'll have to do another stop. And now, Matt, these drivers have been out on this stint for over 40 laps. They're now heading into the no man's zone of how far can they push the fuel and tires.
Yeah, I think if you're someone who was really thinking about it, maybe as we see Alex dive into pit road now too. I think if you are maybe someone who was maybe towards the back and maybe trying something different, because you need to get 3 to 5 more laps out of everything to be able to make it to the end, but then you also have to still save your stuff all the way to the end too. So it's going to be interesting to see who potentially does it. And we see Hernandez, dive down pit road.
And these drivers cannot make it from here on out if you make a pit stop. As over the radio, I think I heard Merrick Watchorn thinking about he's coming into pit road, and he is for the 91. And now the question looms. We've seen so many races turn into it being issues for that of cautions coming out of poor time. Well, this could be one of those racetracks where a poor time could ruin your race, as well, drivers cannot afford issues. Alex Duffins, the number 48 machine on track, one on our ticker, caught speeding. That's a mistake you cannot have, as he's going to be going 2 or more laps down by the time he gets out there on track. John Buwalda having issues trying to enter pit road, as that's for the second time for the 5 machine. As drivers continue to race on, that is a troublesome spot for the 5, who could not afford it. He might have to be forced into pit road to get some damage repair.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how much ground can Alex pick up with pitting earlier, than Merrick, because he did get close, but he did have to get speeding, which is unfortunate too.
And for the drivers that have been trying to save, Doug Tuttle, he was a driver we have not really talked about this evening because he has been just mired back in 5th, 11th place for the majority of the night. Well, he continues to stay out, and he's about that of a lap away from trying to turn this race into a possibility of a 1-lap stint for himself, as well for that of Brady Waldeman, who's right now leading this race, and Michael Robinson. Robinson, though, in a much more trickier spot because he has been caught up in some wrecks on the last couple of restarts. As the 51 heads into pit road, now all eyes are going to loom on the 86 on how well they're going to have to come into pit road, or will they stay out for another lap?
Yeah, with Brady going that long, is he did 46, almost 47 laps, and there's 46 laps remaining. So that puts him in a very good spot to make it to the end.
And driver issues for the 52. Riley Marabello calling it a night for himself, not able to make it to the end. We're down to just that of 11 drivers out on track. Pit road has been cycled through, and now Merrick Watchorn going to be the leader as the drivers cycle all the way through this point. And for Elliott Drummond, he's got to gain a lot of time on that of Merrick Watchorn, but did he give up too much time? Is going to be the true question.
Yeah, I don't remember seeing how far he was away from Merrick, but he pitted 2 laps later. So it's going to see what the difference is. But Patrick Hernandez, by being one of the first few people to come in, and now that jumps him up to 3rd. It with the issues happening to everyone else, and also different people stay no longer.
And that is going to allow him to be up. And for Jacob Elkins, after some of the mistakes that some other drivers have had, is bumped up to 9, now up to 5th place. Maurice Gilmillion up to 6. As Waldeman, Tuttle, Robinson, they all stay back. But the big jump up for a lot of these drivers, the fact that Alec Duffin had his issues, now going to be seeing him back in a 10th place, a lap down. Now have to see how drivers going to work, as issues for Doug Tuttle. Bad exit for himself, caught speeding on the exit. The 86 on his pursuit to try to turn this race into a 1-stop will throw it away, and this could be also a throw it away for a championship hopeful for that 86 machine.
Yeah, I think he's just going to have to rely on Dega to have a shot. I think he's going to have to pull an Austin Dillon at Daytona. He's going to have to go to Dega and really win to give him a shot into the next round.
Does he have that rabbit in his hat? We'll find out, as again, all the drivers that are on track, we're expecting most of them still to have to make one more pit stop, except for that of Michael Robinson and that of Brady Waldeman. They're going to try their best to try to stretch the fuel out, but that is going to be a gutsy call on their part. If they could do so, they're going to have to go into extreme saving mode, but while the other drivers, Matt, they can be as aggressive as they want. And now for Merrick Watchorn, Drummond, Hernandez, all the drivers that need to come into pit road one more time. The question is, when do you come in? Do you come in cutting off the halfway marker, or do you pursue it all the way to the end? As Merrick Watchorn leading the way for the 91, he's got over a 6-second gap lead over Elliott Drummond, which Drummond decided to pit 2 laps later, and he is still losing ground to the 91. So those fresh tires not really enabling him to go much quicker. Patrick Hernandez, on the other side of things, though, started to be caught after being an earlier pitter. 1 lap advantage, now helping Brendan Gregg as well as that of Jacob Elkins.
Yeah, I think I think Drummond is still close enough to where if he saves, he could still potentially make it. But I think it's really going to come down to when does Merrick make his next pit stop? Because if he makes his next pit stop, he could potentially be fast enough with the fresher tires when everyone else is going to be on at the end of the run tires, potentially to still run everyone down.
How do you want to work this thing out? As well as plenty of other battles that are closing in. Got ourselves pretty close, a group of 4. But issues, Doug Tuttle, the 86. This changes everything.
Indeed, it does. Now everyone can pit now and make it to the end. It's no longer a strategy. It's now all out pace.
And drivers are upset about this one because this, looking back, Matt, this replay is going to be an interesting to look back on because I don't think this was just a simple, oh, I lost it on my own. So take a look at the replay. This kind of started out about a lap and a half sooner. And drivers were just upset and mad with one another. Here's the replay, riding on board with Elliott Drummond, catching up to the 86. Gonna be going to the outside, trying to make a pass, but then just dives it down low. And I mean, Tuttle was holding that inside lane, Matt. I don't think he was expecting that, but then things get even more interesting as body slamming action happens between the two.
Yeah, it's a little bit. Like we'll have to get it like a different angle on that, but that looked a little bit dodgy.
Just a tad bit. As there was already watching these drivers, you could see there's already kind of contact for these drivers. They had been, ever since Doug had to do his penalty, he'd been in front of this 29 and kind of in front of him. They've been beating and banging for a couple of laps, but then the body slam there is what finally gets Doug Tuttle spun around. And again, this was a couple of laps building up to that final moment that we just saw there.
Yeah, just thank goodness for your Hernandez and everyone behind him to have the awareness that there's a car spinning down there on the bottom to to go up a lane and miss it.
Yeah, that is big kudos to the league themselves. A lot of drivers over the radio saying there was a driver slow wrecked on the entry of turn 1, and so drivers were able to react appropriately. And this now allows drivers to hit pit road, and this puts us inside of the window to make it to the end. But this also takes away some of those drivers' safety nets. Elliott Drummond forced to use a fast repair as well, and it looks like joining the fray is going to be Doug Tuttle, who's going to use their fast repair. But Doug going to be that 5 laps down, and this race is chalked up to nothing. And now going to be pressuring involved with a wreck with second place runner that was trying to catch up to Merrick Watchorn. And this kind of makes a lot more sense, Matt, on why I was confused on Elliott Drummond not be able to catch up to Merrick Watchorn if that battle was going on for as many laps as it was.
Yeah, it's I understand Elliott's frustration with being stuck behind a lap car, but you almost kind of also got to put blame on both of them to put themselves in a position, especially two playoff drivers. You do not want to put yourself in a position, to make it to where you are putting your fate in someone else's hands.
Well, we're stacked up. We're getting ready to go. It's going to be less than 30 laps to go. And just like last week at Texas, there was a fuel strategy run that was potentially there to change the fates for some of these drivers on where they're going to finish. Well, throw it away. It is now you take it from here. Drivers have used 3 sets of the 4 of tires they've got. So that a lot of these drivers, they decide that tires are important, and we get a caution here in the next 10 to 15 laps. Who knows who's going to come into pit road? Except for right now, the pace truck is in, and we're back to green flag racing here at Richmond.
A lot better start from Elliott Drummond. He did not spin his tires very much, and that puts him in a lot better position to potentially, battle. Oh, as he gets loose, coming out of 2, and that's going to give him a very vulnerable spot to the 2 guys behind him.
That's going to be putting Patrick Hernandez, Brandon Gregg side by side, and Hernandez, really, you could give that whole entire great release by Elliott Drummond all to a bump by the 19, and able to really take off and have a great run for themselves, as it's going to be taking off, trying to hold on. He's Merrick Watchhorn. He gets a great picture of what's happening behind him, as still the beating and banging, the 19 and the 2. These are going to be the drivers that continue to fight and claw, trying to make it to the final 4, and they got to be careful not to just run each other over with 27 laps to go.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where you want to be fighting for it, but you don't want to give up too much. But also, if you notice, the top 5 is all playoff guys, and that's why they're in the playoffs, because they put themselves in great position.
As Jacob Elkins in 5th place, it's got to be careful because he's got some fast drivers behind him that are going to try to steal away any positions they can. As we right on board with that of the 29, he's still watching the side-by-side battling between that of Patrick Hernandez, and Hernandez gets loose again on the inside. Just, it's one of the positions for the 19. He has not felt comfortable down on the inside all night long, and still with fresh tires, that seems to be the struggling point. It just takes him about that of 20 laps before it stables out.
Absolutely, as we see also Drum getting right up against, Merrick here too, as he gets really close to the wall there.
Close to the wall, he's got to send it for the best that he can, but will that of Drummond get close enough to think about using the bumper? He's already gotten himself thrown away on an opportune chance on a green flag racing before that last yellow came out with Doug Tuttle. Will he decide to just go for a win? Because a win, Matt, is the opportune chance to go fight for a championship.
Absolutely, but you also don't want to risk it all in potential of really throwing away your chance with how tight, 2 through 5 was. They were all separated by 6 to 8 points, so you do not want to put yourself in a risky spot. But I think right now, if you were at this close, you definitely want to take that chance.
And if you get into contact with Merrick Watchhorn, who still has not won this round, he's not officially locked in, but if you can cause some issues for the 91, I mean, what hopes and dreams he would hate to feel if he somehow has a bad finish here after dominating at Richmond, to then go into Talladega with a real must-win scenario for the 91.
Yeah, but you do not want to put yourself in that position right now. If you're Merrick, you have a fast truck. You have enough points to potentially get yourself just squeaking by. Even with a bad finish at Dega, you do not want to put yourself in a bad spot. If he sticks his nose in there, yeah, sure, you can, really want to fight for it. But right now, you really just want to maintain. But even if Elliott gets to the bottom, I think we're still far enough into a run where that bottom line is starting to lose its grip and its momentum. So if you can keep someone on the bottom and keep that high side, you are going to keep that position.
That's exactly what's going on for the battle of 3rd place, because Brandon Gregg, Patrick Hernandez have not been able to get away from one another as Merrick Watchhorn continues to pull away. But Patrick Hernandez, that of Gregg, just cannot get away from one another. They continue to stay side by side as Jacob Elkins just smiles and grins and watches these two burn up their stuff in front of him.
Yeah, it's kind of like a patiently waiting, because still with 19 laps to go, you're coming to 18. If you are the 9 of Elkins, you are licking your chops. You're hoping that these guys have burned up their stuff because it's going to be about another 10 laps before they really fall off and allow Elkins to, to catch up to them.
As they continue to beat and batter against one another, the question now looms for Patrick Hernandez. Can he hold this positioning or can he finally clear? He tries a dive bomb move there, just wasn't enough. He'll have to try to settle for a decent release out of the corner. Now into turn number one, the 19 will try it once again. And as he tries to rip it on the yellow line, feeling comfortable back into the throttle, and they keep each other equal distance once again. Gotta say, both drivers looking on rails there for that past lap.
Absolutely. If you're kind of Hernandez, you kind of want to almost do a slide job and hope that Greg like doesn't run you over, but also that puts your race and your life in someone else's hands. If you see him like going to clear himself like around the corner.
Is Greg not feeling confident on that entry of the corner. Going to give up a lot of time for himself. The two still a half a lane too high. And Hernandez, because he was able to just stay so low and has figured out the lane on that inside groove, he's able to stay calm and hit his marks. Going to once again runs lower than the two machine as Greg, who hasn't been running that inside lane for much, just taps the apron and loses so much momentum.
Yeah, if you haven't done it the whole race and you maybe do it one time, it's going to catch you out, and it allows Elkins to catch up to him.
And here comes Jacob Elkins as well, the 51. Brady Waldeman going to be a driver, but caution flag waves, and it's John Bawala Jr. self-spin for the 5 machine, I believe. That's going to be bringing out a yellow. And Matt had talked about it, a 10, 15-lap run. Will drivers decide to take tires now?
I think if you were in the back, absolutely. I think if you were Merrick and Drummond, it's kind of a risky to where if you come in, everyone else stays out. So it's going to be interesting to see here.
Well, it's part of the race where you have to decide, do you follow the leader? Because if Merrick's been the fastest one, or do you change your stance on how this race is going to go? As we take a look here on the 5, John Bawalda Jr. has been having a pretty poor race for himself and just gets the throttle too much, and around the 5 goes.
Yeah, just try to stick his throttle down a little bit too much, too early. You almost kind of just have to roll into the corner. It seems like he jabbed it a little bit too hard there.
And Matt, surprise to everyone, every single driver hits pit road. And now the question of who takes 2 tires now is both going to be coming into pit road for our leaders. The right sides go up for the 91. Will there be any movement on that of Elliott Drummond's machine? As on the exit of the corner, it's 4 tires and go.
Like
Here comes Jacob Elkins. Elkins takes the lead for himself, and the 51 also takes 2 tires, drives through that of Elliott Drummond, takes the advantage of the really drive-through of somebody else, and that of Elliott Drummond gets pushed back to 4th.
That is huge, because if starting on the front row seems to be so far the best option, because the top 2 kind of, if you get a good getaway and don't spin your tires, you're going to stay up there towards the front. So it's going to be interesting to see. But this is also the first time that people have taken 2 tires, and they were pretty close to about 15 laps into a run. So it's going to be interesting to see. Yes, you're going to be maybe not as quick as the 4 tires, but it is going to be very loose here at the beginning of the run until the tire pressures even out.
And another thing of note, Elliott Drummond has been absolutely dismal on these restarts. Even when we get a decent start, the exit of the corners have been really rough. And also for some of the drivers deeper in the field, they've been struggling on the exit of the corners with fresh tires. So we'll see how these cold tires want to react. And will the caution breed a caution here? As the 51 playing some mind games, is trying to figure out where to place one another, is trying to just mess with how they're going to be figuring out how to place themselves. And I'm curious, Matt, with the lights still on, the decision for Jacob Elkins, where he wants to go, and it sounds like he wants to take that high line on this restart.
It also is going to be interesting, too, because Merrick has not started on the inside. He started on the outside on every single restart here. So it's going to be interesting to see how well he adapts to the inside early on here.
Well, thank you again for watching here on the Blitz Racing Network. My name's Sam Dyer. With me is Matt Dyer. You are watching the Twigi iRacing series. This is playoff racing action on screen, as this is the round of 6, race number 2 of 3. And we only have 2 more races left in the season before we crown a champion. We got tonight at Richmond, only that of 9 more laps to go. Going to be 8 once we go back to green flag racing here. And as well, we have Talladega next week that will set us up for the stage of 4 drivers that will race for a championship at the old 2008 Scan Atlanta. Can't wait to give you more of that coverage, but for tonight, who's going to get the win? That of Jacob Elkins going to be on the 2 tires. The 51 of Brad Wilderman, he'll be on the second car truck on the inside. He took 2 tires. Everyone else took 4 tires and are good to go, as it is time to see who's getting the better launch here at Richmond. With 8 laps to go, anything could still happen. We still have overtime if needed, and we are green and Elkins is gone.
3 wide going into 1. It's going to be interesting if he's, oh, the 51 gets a little bit loose going into the corner, as we see Elliott holding strong on that outside.
Holding strong for himself. He didn't wiggle like I was expecting. We'll still stay a little bit of 3 wide action as the 51 backs out. Merrick Watchorn trying to get back into the throttle the best that he can. And here comes Drummond. Drummond's got to get back into the throttle the best that he can for himself. He cannot afford to lose this side by side. He's got to stay at the quarter panel and back into the throttle on the exit at 2. Merrick Watchorn with the wiggle. And it's going to be Patrick Hernandez spun. The 19 spins and brings out the yellow.
And I believe Elliott was in front of Merrick at the state of the caution, so that's going to put him ahead of him. And if Elkins take the outside too, that's going to put him in front of Merrick on the bottom.
And now coming across the line, that is going to be a 6 laps to go, which this could be placing us inside of a regulation green or white checkered, or right on the brink of overtime, as we take a look at what brought out this yellow. A lot of hard racing. Playoff drivers right on top of one another. Brendan Gregg, Patrick Hernandez, they just can't get away from one another, but it seems to be the same issues we've talked about all night long. The 19 on those fresh tires, and Maurice Gomillion also gets involved with it.
Yeah, it looks like Hernandez just got a little bit loose, and he was having a hard time just holding on to it there.
It's just the fresh tires. Those cold tires have been just nipping at the 19 all race long, and it finally strikes. I thought it was going to be Elliott Drummond, but it finally just piled over for Hernandez, who I think might have been feeling the pressure of getting back to the throttle, got into it too soon, loops it around, and it's going to be Gomillion as well, as you saw there. Duffin's involved with that, all into pit road, getting repairs done, and as well going to be utilizing a fast repair for themselves. But now we go back up front. It's Jacob Elkins, Elliott Drummond, the front 2 in front of that of Merrick Watchorn.
Yeah, I think too with the caution laps, that's going to put us pretty close to a potential green, white, checkered, or even just 3 laps to go. And that's just going to pretty much put it in the hands of Jacob Elkins here to see if he can hold on to it. But it's still huge implications with, with Drummond fighting on that outside and getting himself ahead of Merrick. That was the biggest thing for Elliott this race.
As it looks like Jacob Elkins deciding he wants the outside again. And for Elliott Drummond, he gets to try for, I believe this is the 3rd time for the 29, being in 2nd place and hoping that he'll have a much better go. The last 2 he's had, the first launch was terrible. The second was a decent, but he had a push from that of the 19, but that had a bad exit of the corner. This last restart was probably the best restart we've seen the 29 have. But can this 4th restart be the gem that could place them into a position to hold off Merrick Watchorn and Matt? Merrick must be fuming. We've heard him whenever he's not in victory lane. He just sounds so distressed. Tonight could be another night of hearing the 91 frustrated and not happy, especially if he has 2 playoff drivers in front of him.
Yeah, but I think if you're him, you kind of just gotta not put yourself in a situation where everyone's going to be pointing the finger. Yes, he has the fastest truck. Yes, he has, probably like the most skill out of everyone in this race. But you don't want to put yourself in a tricky spot here.
And you got to watch out as well for the 19 of Patrick Hernandez. How well will he be able to move forward on this restart as drivers are ready to get rolling here this evening. And Matt, it is official. We are in overtime. Our first of 3 attempts if needed, which means we have 2 laps. If we get to the 1 lap to go, that white flag is flying. We will take this race to the end. But if a yellow flag comes out before that, we will go into attempt number 2. If the same scenario happens of a yellow flag coming out on that first lap on attempt number 2, we'll go into attempt number 3. But if we need to go to attempt number 3, we'll talk about how the rules change there. But this is our first overtime attempt. Who's winning at Richmond? It's Elliott Drummond, as well as that of Jacob Elkins. And Drummond, a terrible, dismal start once again, and it puts that Watchhorn back to 4th now. Diving it down low is going to be the 9 machine. He's holding off for now. He went for 2 tires. Same for the 51. Waldeman. Waldeman's going to be putting the block on Elliott Drummond. Here comes Watchhorn. Going to be diving it in. Sliding contact. And he rips him on the top. And the 91 gives no opportunity and just runs through the 51 machine. And we're going to attempt number 2.
Just like what I said earlier, do not want to put yourself on in a tricky situation and get the fingers started pointing at you. It seemed like he got in there a little bit too hard. He was trying to really race Drummond there, and really just almost just ended the race for the 51 and potentially put Drummond in a tough spot too.
It sounds like he might have locked up those tires based on the reports. Watchhorn saying over the radio, it felt like he was on the brakes sooner than he's ever been before, and it still slid in there. So most likely just locking up those brakes, and now it's time to see how it's going to go. But that 91, I would say, Matt, he was going for everything. And now it's time to see, will Watchhorn go wrecking more drivers to try to get himself in a victory lane?
Yeah, him and Drummond were really fighting hard. He just had to get off the throttle, otherwise he was going to it, and he just saw everyone just splitting, and it just slid into him.
And then dug deep, and now going to be seeing that Waldeman, who was trying to make a hero move, just like Jacob Elkins taking the 2-tire stop. Well, throw the 51 to the side. He's now all the way back to the end of the line. And now, Matt, I'm curious from Eric Watchhorn. Now he's got some heavy front-end damage that he's dealing with. How will that affect him on this restart as we are in overtime attempt number 2? We take another look at the replay here of what brought out our caution under that of overtime attempt number 1.
Yeah, it seems like Drummond didn't get too much damage, but it was enough to make a difference.
Just enough to get it done. Well, we are in overtime attempt number 2, ladies and gentlemen. So it means that we are going to be finding ourselves in a position of another 2-lap shootout. If we get ourselves to the white flag, the 1 to go, we will go and race this thing to the end. But if a yellow flag comes out on our first lap, like it just happened on this last restart, we will go into attempt number 3. And Matt, I know a lot of these drivers probably don't want to make it to attempt number 3, as the drivers have been notified. They've been given it. We are now in the 1 to go indicator.
Yeah, the one big thing too is even though all that happened, Drummond's still ahead of Merrick. So hopefully the damage to Drummond was not big enough to make a difference here, but still being in front of Merrick is still huge here.
Also curious on how the 2 machine's going to go, because what helped the 51 get ahead of Drummond was a bad restart wheel spin from the 29 of Drummond. Will he have another poor restart? They could put Brendan Gregg in a position to go for a podium finish. That would be massive for the 2 machine, as that of Patrick Hernandez is still top 5, are all playoff drivers. Crazy to think we have placed ourselves into this type of scenario, But here we go, back to green flag racing, and that of Elliott Drummond. Another poor start. Merrick Watchorn trying to give the 29 a bump. It just wasn't enough. And that of Brendan Gregg's going to be side by side. They get in line, and Watchorn almost destroying the two as we come off of turn number 2. Matt, we're hoping for that white flag, but drivers are getting wiggly. Here comes Watchorn again, diving it down low.
It really dove it in there deep as we take the white flag.
White flags in the air. Jacob Elkins hoping to lock himself into the playoffs as Merrick Watchorn wipes out the 2. Dirty move by Merrick Watchorn. He did it multiple times and he does it again. Who's going to take him out? It's going to be Patrick Hernandez battling there. But for the lead, Elliott Drummond gives the bump, gets that of Elkins high, body slams the 9. Give Elliott Drummond the win as he muscles his way forward.
What a finish.
And Jacob Elkins is mad. And there's a couple of drivers that are going to be mad about this one. As Merrick Watchorn, I got to say, absolutely just throwing it into every single corner, and Watchorn really causing every wreck there possible. Drummond aggressive there to the 9, and the aggression kind of worked out only for the 29 as the 91, not even a top 3 finish. So we won't hear to that of the boiling 91, but I would say elation goes to the 19 of Patrick Hernandez. The 9's going to be quite frustrated, but Elliott Drummond, controversy over the 29.
But I do think that was a bit nicer of a bump. I mean, it is short track racing. But I think what Merrick did was maybe a little bit over the line, but I think what Elliott did, very slight bump, got him a little bit faster than what Elkins wanted to in the corner. This made him slide up a little bit, and he was able to get underneath him. That I think is just good short track racing.
I mean, that's what you're expecting to see at the end. When you've got an opportunity to go for the win, you got to place the bump. That you've got bumpers for a reason. You got quarter panels to be rubbing. And rubbing's racing when you're coming to these type of tracks. As Elliott Drummond gets the win. Let's take a look here at our unofficial results. As the admins are going to take a look at this one, as Merrick Watchorn already went over the radio and said, we're looking over this one. And Watchorn, just to let you know, you were the cause of a majority of those late incidences. Elliott Drummond's going to be finding himself into victory lane. Same for that of Jacob Elkins. Patrick Hernandez is going to be in 3rd. Those are going to be the top 3. We'll talk to them in just a few moments, with 4th going to Merrick Watchorn. Alec Delphin's going to get 5th, with Maurice Gomillion finishing back in 6th place. 7th going to go to that of Brady Waldeman. That of Michael Robinson somehow escapes away with the 8th place finish, but drivers that are upset and mad got to be that of Brendan Gregg, as well as Doug Tuttle. Both of those playoff drivers, poor point states for themselves. That puts the 2 outside going into Talladega. Tuttle, he is in a must-win scenario going into next week, with John Buwalda Jr. and Riley Marbello going to be your 12 drivers that raced here this evening. Well, Matt, a wild one for sure. We're going to, certainly excited to see how the driver's going to react, but we're going to step aside for a quick moment as we wait for the drivers to get ready for interviews. We'll be back in just a few moments. Thank you for all your patience as we are back for the post race show here on the Blitz Racing Network. You got myself, Sam Dyer, Matt Dyer as well, as we're going to be bringing in our top three to see their thoughts on how that overtime attempt number 2 went down. As we're bringing in third place finisher Patrick Hernandez up to the booth. Patrick, I mean, what a wild race that was, needing 2 overtime attempts. How are you feeling after that one?
I feel a bit frustrated, a little bit drained. Uh, I know the the truck was nowhere near being fast the entire night. I tried different lines, different braking points. I tried everything that was on my power to try to make some ground and uh on the one of the runs with 14 laps to go. When I finally had the third spot after a hard fight with Brennan, uh, the yellow comes on. I said, "You have to be kidding me." Come to pit, take tires, and pray for the best. I spun out because I don't know. I've been doing the same thing over and over again, but that time around, the truck decided to run out of grip. Um, at that point, I thought that my night was going to be over. That everything that I fight so hard the entire night uh, was gone away. So a couple miracles there in the green white checker, and I made it back to a third spot. For me, it's gold, because I know that I didn't have a third place car, maybe fifth, sixth place car, but uh, I'm satisfied with the effort, and now I'm gonna have to find the groove again if I want to go to the final four and have a chance to fight for the title.
Well, you certainly are placed in a pretty good spot now after Merrick's contact with Brennan Gregg. It forces the two all the way back to ninth place. So now it places your machine inside of our top four heading into Talladega. How are you feeling knowing that Talladega is your sealing fate on if you're going to make it to the final four? I know you got your second life in the playoffs with John Lynch not able to make it and race for the rest of the playoffs, but how are you feeling personally knowing that it's a wild card race that's going to place you in or out of a championship hope?
Man, honestly, I have nothing on my mind. I know that Talladega is gonna be a wild card, like you said, but man, there's nothing I can do. All I all I have to do and all I can do is buckle up and race and pray for the best. That's the only thing I'm left to do. The past round I end up at Bristol like so mad, so pissed. I had like the best statistic, the best drug all season, and I didn't make it. So at some point I was frustrated. I was pissed. Then I get the message. I was working. I got the message that Jo was not going to be able to continue in the playoff, and I feel bad for him. Because he deserved to be in that spot. So I felt like new life. I tried to be safe last week. I couldn't do it. I got loose. Excellent turn four, hit the wall, but at least I save a nice cushion of points. But yeah, man. For next week, there's nothing on my hands. I just have to drive and pray that everything goes on my favor.
Well, the favor certainly landed in your seats here tonight, and we can't wait to see what you bring next week there, Patrick. But before we let you go, the floor is yours for any shout outs.
Yeah, like every week, I want to give a shout out to Ray Brick, MSI, all the guys at Merrick, uh, Watcher E Motorsports for all the job we've been doing. Thanks to Merrick, that man, we've been working so hard this week to get me up to this place. So thanks to the entire team for the hard work, and thank you to everyone. Thank you for you guys for the broadcast booth, for the transmission, and yeah, man.
Well, congratulations again, Patrick, on a third place finish, and good luck heading to Talladega next week.
Thank you, guys.
As we had from that of third place, we had to second, where we bring in Jacob Elkins. And Jacob, It's Sam up in the booth. I know this has got to be a little bit of a heart-wrenching finish, but still a great points day for yourself. How are you feeling after this one?
Yeah, I'm both frustrated and happy with where I finished. I'm frustrated that uh, he gave me the little bump and won, but he did a good job doing it. He didn't completely wreck me or anything, which I respect. I would have honestly done the same thing if I was in his position, but I am honestly happy with second place because I pretty much came from all the way in the back and got a good pit call there, taking two tires, and got him out in the front. But yeah, other than that, I'm pretty happy. Other than that,
Well, solid points day, like I said. Coming into tonight, you were second in points. Looks like you're going to be coming out tied second in points as well. Looking overall great for yourself that you're going to make the final four, but what is going through your mind knowing that Talladega is the final destination before we go to our championship four?
well, I know it's gonna be mayhem. That track is always mayhem. That track, I hate it with a passion. Same with Daytona. I just think plate racing is not too skillful. You just have to use your brain, and not be dumb. But uh, I'm looking forward to it, I guess. But I know Elliot Drummond isn't going to look forward to it because he's not going to finish next week.
Well, that certainly is a threat to be thrown. And Jacob, we can't wait to see what you bring next week. But for tonight, the floor is yours for any shout outs.
My team, Shoal Racing. I love these guys so much. I'm glad that Alec can now run in this league. He's a very good racer. Definitely expect him to be in victory lane. And you guys for putting on the broadcast, and Merrick for putting on the league.
That is going to be the 9 machine of Jacob Elkins. Congratulations on a second place finish and good luck at Talladega next week.
Thank you.
As we go from second place, well, let's bring in the winner and we'll see a different tune from the rest as we've got that of Elliot Drummond going to be up in the booth. Elliot, we got to talk about that pass at the end. Matt and I both think that's just some good, hard, short track racing. And congratulations on the win. What was your thoughts heading into those last couple of restarts?
Well, when I saw that Brady got hit me, I'm like, wow, I'm screwed. Honestly, I really thought I was screwed after Brady got hit me and Merrick was up on the front row. But surprisingly, two tires held up on, especially really well on the restarts. You can hold your ground for a lap, but after like a lap or two, you definitely feel the difference and see it.
I mean, Elliot, that's been kind of the restarts. That was something Matt and I were talking about a lot. It just seemed like restarts were just not your thing here tonight. What was the big issue for yourself that you felt like was the troublesome spots?
Well, I think if you don't start in first gear, you're just being conservative, which is fine. But if you don't start in first gear, you're not gonna have any advantage. So when you're starting on first gear, especially on the bottom, you tend to get a lot of wheel spin because like all the dirty stuff is down there. So it was mainly the wheel spin, but I think the last restart I did as best that I could down there. So I was able to get clear of second. So I feel like the last restart was the best I've done all night.
It certainly did. And now with this win, you got to be feeling like that weight is off your shoulders heading into next week at Talladega. How are you feeling trying to set up for a track that really no one knows what we're going to see tomorrow? I mean, that of next week.
I'm just glad I got me a cushion.
That is certainly true. Well, Elliot, before we let you go, the floor is yours for any shout outs.
I just want to say congrats to Douglas Carlson not Carlson, sorry, Tuttle for trying to wreck me. You tried so hard, but sometimes it's just not your thing. But all I gotta say is great race, guys. Yeehaw.
That is going to be the 29 of Elliot Drummond, going to be finding himself winning here tonight. Congratulations and good luck at Talladega next week.
All right, thank you, Sam.
Well, certainly mayhem, but Matt, I gotta say, drivers, the rivalries certainly have blown to this point, and it's gonna be something of a shocker, I would imagine, Matt, because we're seeing a lot of drivers that are making enemies, and they're playoff drivers, and I would say you don't want to have too many enemies if you're gonna be having a championship race in 2 weeks.
Yeah, it's definitely a tricky spot, but I mean, you almost kind of have to say that everyone has done their job, especially the playoff drivers. When you look at the standings, all the playoff drivers have been towards the front. Obviously, we had some trouble with with Tuttle, but all of the other ones were near the front, obviously until Greg had his you know, his issue, but that is the reason why they've been in the playoffs is they put themselves into a spot in a very good spot towards the end of the race. Yeah, they might all the playoff drivers might not start at the front, but they always seem to finish there.
That just means that these point standings are going to be very close going into next week. But Brandon Gregg, it's going to be a tough one if he wants to find himself pointing his way into the next round. Doug Tuttle's going to have to find himself winning to make it into the final four. But it's Matt. I gotta say, it's looking like Elliott Drummond with this win. He's got his cushion. He's into the final four. But Jacob Elkins, Patrick Hernandez, Merrick Watchorn, they finished in the top four. Those points are going to be even closer. It's going to be a fun Talladega race to watch next week, especially with Jacob Elkins' threat that he just threw out. Merrick Watchorn's been fuming over the radio since that race was over. Oh, there are some mad drivers in Talladega. It's not really a track where you would think getting some payback can be shown, but you certainly could serve it in a bad bump somewhere.
Absolutely, and it's one of those things where you almost kind of have to put your faith in someone else. But now with everyone's faith kind of shattered here, it's going to make that race even more exciting.
Well, I cannot wait to see how it goes, and I hope you're all ready for it as well. As tonight, the third to last race of the season is done. Richmond has set us up for the stage that we're going to be seeing next week. Talladega, who will be making the final four, who's getting payback, and I cannot wait. 2 weeks from now, it's the championship race at Atlanta for the Twigi iRacing series here on the Blitz Racing Network. Thank you so much for joining us on your Friday nights. For myself, Sam Dyer, for Matt Dyer, and everyone else here at the Blitz Racing Network, thank you so much for watching here tonight. And we can't wait to see you next week. We'll see you then. Have a good one for the rest of your week.